Welcome to my channel. Have you ever made a mistake and immediately felt bad about yourself? Have you ever stayed silent because you were afraid of saying the wrong thing? What if I told you that the biggest reason you are not improving is not your mistakes, but your fear of them? Today, I am going to show you a truth that most people never understand. The people who become successful, confident, and fluent are not the people who avoid mistakes. They are the people who learn from them. Stay with me until the end, because one simple idea in this video may completely change the way you think about mistakes forever. Chapter 1. Have you ever stayed silent even when you knew the answer? Have you ever wanted to speak English but stopped yourself because you were afraid of making a mistake? If your answer is yes, then you are not alone. Millions of people around the world feel the same way. They want to speak. They want to learn. They want to improve. But something stops them. That something is fear. Today, I want to tell you a story. It is a simple story, but it teaches an important lesson. A few years ago, I met a student named Adam. Adam wanted to learn English. He watched videos every day. He learned new words. He read short stories. He understood many things. But there was one problem. He was afraid to speak. Every time his teacher asked a question, Adam looked down. Every time someone said, "Can you answer?" he became nervous. His heart started beating fast. His hands became cold. He knew some answers, but he stayed quiet. One day, his teacher asked him, "Adam, why don't you speak?" Adam smiled and said, "Because I don't want to make mistakes." The teacher nodded. Then she asked him a question that changed everything. She said, "How will you learn if you never make mistakes?" Adam did not answer. He thought about that question all day. Maybe you are like Adam. Maybe you think mistakes are bad. Maybe you think people will laugh at you. Maybe you think others will think you are not smart. But let me tell you something important. Most people are not afraid of mistakes. They are afraid of being judged. They worry about what other people will think. Imagine a child learning to walk. The child stands up, then falls down, stands up again, then falls again. Nobody laughs. Nobody says the child is a failure. Everyone smiles and says, "Try again." But when we grow older, something changes. We start thinking that mistakes are embarrassing. We start believing that we must be perfect. In school, many students are afraid of giving the wrong answer. In English class, many learners know what they want to say, but they stay silent. They think, "What if my grammar is wrong? What if my pronunciation is bad? What if everyone laughs?" So they say nothing. But every day they stay silent. They lose another chance to improve. I remember another student named Sarah. Sarah knew many English words. She understood movies. She understood books. But she never spoke English. Not because she could not speak, because she was afraid. One day she joined an online conversation class. During the first lesson, she spoke only 3 sentences. All 3 sentences had mistakes. After class, she felt terrible. She thought she had failed. But her teacher smiled and said, "Excellent job." Sarah was surprised. She asked, "How was it excellent? I made many mistakes." Her teacher replied, "Because today you learned 3 things you did not know yesterday." That day, Sarah understood something important. Every mistake was showing her where she could improve. Every mistake was teaching her something new. Slowly, she became more confident. Slowly, she became a better speaker. Today, she speaks English every day. The funny thing is that the mistakes she feared the most became the reason she improved the most. Think about your own life. Have you ever learned something difficult? Riding a bicycle, driving a car, swimming, using a computer. Did you do it perfectly on the first day? Of course not. You made mistakes. Everyone does. Mistakes are part of learning. They are not proof that you are failing. They are proof that you are trying. The real danger is not making mistakes. The real danger is being so afraid that you never try. Many people spend years waiting for the perfect moment. They wait until their English is perfect. They wait until they know every grammar rule. They wait until they feel confident. But confidence does not come before action. Confidence comes after action. It comes after trying. It comes after making mistakes and learning from them. So if you are afraid of mistakes, remember this. Every fluent English speaker was once a beginner. Every confident speaker once said the wrong word. Every expert once felt nervous. The difference is that they kept going. They did not let fear stop them. And there is something even more surprising. What if mistakes are not just a normal part of learning? What if mistakes are actually helping your brain grow stronger? In the next chapter, you will discover the hidden purpose of mistakes and why they may be one of the most powerful teachers you will ever have. Chapter 2. In the last chapter, we learned that many people are afraid of making mistakes. They stay silent because they do not want to look foolish. They avoid speaking because they are afraid of being judged. But now we need to answer an important question. If mistakes feel so bad, why do they exist? Why do we keep making them? And what if mistakes are doing something important that most people never understand? Let me tell you another story. A young boy named Ethan wanted to learn how to ride a bicycle. He was excited. He watched other children ride around the park. They looked happy and free. Ethan wanted to be like them. One morning, his father brought him a bicycle. Ethan smiled. He jumped onto the seat. He held the handlebars tightly. Then he started moving. 5 seconds later, he fell. His knee hurt. His hands were dirty. He looked at his father and said, "I can't do it." His father smiled and said, "Try again." Ethan tried again, and again he fell. Then again, then again. By the end of the day, he had fallen so many times that he stopped counting. He was tired. He was frustrated. He wanted to quit. But his father said something he never forgot. He said, Every time you fall, your body learns something new. Ethan did not understand those words at the time, but a few weeks later, he was riding his bicycle without help. He was faster. He was stronger. Most importantly, every fall had taught him something. If he had never fallen, he would never have learned. Learning English works the same way. Every mistake teaches you something. Every wrong answer gives you information. Every incorrect sentence shows you where you can improve. The problem is that many people only see the embarrassment. They do not see the lesson hiding behind it. I once knew a student named Olivia. She wanted to improve her English speaking skills. Every day she practiced for 30 minutes. One day she joined an online conversation group. During the discussion, she wanted to say, "I went to the market yesterday." But instead, she said, "I go to the market yesterday." Immediately, she realized her mistake. Her face became red. She wanted to disappear. She thought everyone would laugh. But something interesting happened. Nobody laughed. One student simply smiled and said, "You mean went?" Olivia nodded. She corrected herself. The conversation continued. That night she could not stop thinking about her mistake. But something amazing happened. She never forgot the difference between go and went again. One small mistake taught her a lesson that stayed in her memory. That is the hidden purpose of mistakes. They help us notice what we need to learn. Imagine trying to find your way through a dark forest. Every wrong turn teaches you where not to go. Slowly, you begin to understand the path. Eventually, you find your destination. Learning is exactly the same. Mistakes are signs. They point toward growth. They show us what needs attention. Without mistakes, improvement becomes much slower. Think about babies learning to speak. They say many words incorrectly. They mix sounds. They pronounce words in funny ways. But nobody expects perfection. Everyone understands that mistakes are part of the process. Somehow, when we become adults, we forget this simple truth. We expect ourselves to be perfect immediately. We become impatient. We want success without struggle. We want fluency without mistakes. But that is not how learning works. Every successful person has learned through errors. Every skilled athlete missed shots. Every musician played wrong notes. Every writer wrote bad sentences. Every fluent English speaker once struggled with grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. The difference is that they understood something important. Mistakes were not enemies. Mistakes were teachers. Sometimes the lesson is small. Sometimes it is life-changing. But every mistake carries information. The smartest learners do not ask, "How can I avoid mistakes?" They ask, "What can this mistake teach me?" That simple question changes everything. It turns failure into feedback. It turns frustration into growth. It turns fear into confidence. The next time you make a mistake in English, do not immediately feel bad. Instead, be curious. Ask yourself what you can learn from it. Because every correction is making you stronger. Every error is building a better version of you. And here is something even more surprising. Scientists have discovered that when you make a mistake and then correct it, your brain actually becomes stronger. It creates new connections and helps you remember better. In the next chapter, we will explore what really happens inside your brain when you make a mistake, and why your brain may love mistakes much more than you think. Chapter 3. In the last chapter, we learned that mistakes are not our enemies. They are teachers. Every mistake shows us something we need to learn. But now there is an even bigger question. What actually happens inside your brain when you make a mistake? Why do many experts say that mistakes help us learn faster? The answer may surprise you. Let me tell you a story. A young woman named Emma wanted to improve her English. She studied every day. She watched videos. She learned grammar. She practiced vocabulary. But there was one thing she hated. She hated making mistakes. Every time she got something wrong, she felt disappointed. One evening, she joined an English conversation class. The teacher asked a simple question. "What did you do yesterday?" Emma quickly answered, "Yesterday I go to the park." The teacher smiled and said, "Yesterday I went to the park." Emma immediately realized her mistake. She felt embarrassed. She wished she could take the sentence back. After class, she sat quietly and thought about what happened. The next day, something interesting happened. She remembered the correction perfectly. She never forgot it. Weeks later, she still remembered it. Why? Because her brain had noticed the mistake. That moment of correction became powerful. It stayed in her memory. You see, your brain is amazing. It is always learning. It is always building connections. Imagine your brain as a city full of roads. Every time you learn something new, a small road is created. At first, that road is weak and narrow. Information moves slowly, but every time you practice, the road becomes stronger. It becomes easier to travel. Now imagine making a mistake. Your brain suddenly notices that something is wrong. It pays attention. It becomes alert. Then, when you receive the correct answer, your brain starts building a stronger road. That is why many lessons become unforgettable after a mistake. The mistake tells your brain, this information is important. A few years ago, I met a student named Noah. Noah wanted to speak English fluently, but he often forgot grammar rules. He would learn something on Monday and forget it by Friday. One day he became frustrated. He said, "Why do I keep forgetting everything?" His teacher smiled and said, "Because learning is not always comfortable." Noah did not understand. Then the teacher explained something important. She said, "When your brain struggles, it grows." Noah thought about those words for a long time. He realized that every difficult moment was actually helping him improve. Every correction was making his memory stronger. Slowly, he stopped fearing mistakes. He started seeing them differently. Have you ever noticed that you remember embarrassing moments for a long time? Maybe you said the wrong word. Maybe you forgot someone's name. Maybe you made a funny mistake in front of other people. Those memories stay with you because your brain pays attention when something unexpected happens. Learning works in a similar way. When you make a mistake and then correct it, your brain becomes active. It focuses more deeply. It learns more effectively. That is why students who never challenge themselves often learn more slowly. They stay inside their comfort zone. They avoid difficult situations. They avoid mistakes. But they also avoid growth. Think about learning English. If you only read easy sentences, your progress will be slow. If you only use words you already know, your vocabulary will stay small. Growth happens when you try something difficult. Growth happens when you risk making mistakes. Sometimes people think that successful learners never struggle. That is not true. Successful learners struggle all the time. The difference is that they keep going. They understand that confusion is part of learning. They understand that mistakes are signs of progress. They understand that every correction makes their brain stronger. There is another surprising truth. Sometimes forgetting is also part of learning. You study a word today. Tomorrow you forget it. Then you learn it again. It feels frustrating. But every time you return to that word, your memory becomes stronger. Your brain is building stronger connections. It is preparing that information to stay longer. This is why learning takes time. It is not magic. It is a process filled with practice, corrections, and mistakes. So the next time you make a mistake, remember this. Your brain is not failing. Your brain is working. It is building new pathways. It is creating stronger memories. It is helping you improve. Every mistake is part of that journey. But there is still one important problem. If mistakes help us learn, why do some people make the same mistakes again and again without improving? Why do some learners grow quickly while others stay stuck for years? The answer is hidden in one of the biggest mistakes people make about mistakes themselves. And that is exactly what we will discover in the next chapter. Chapter 4. In the last chapter, we learned something surprising. Mistakes help the brain grow. Every correction makes learning stronger. Every challenge creates new connections inside the brain. But now we face an important question. If mistakes help us learn, why do some people improve quickly while others stay at the same level for years? Why do some learners become fluent while others keep making the same mistakes again and again? The answer is simple. Their biggest mistake is not making mistakes. Their biggest mistake is refusing to learn from them. Let me tell you a story. A student named Ryan wanted to improve his English. He was hardworking. He watched videos every day. He studied grammar books. He learned new vocabulary. But there was a problem. Whenever someone corrected him, he became uncomfortable. He did not like hearing that he was wrong. If a teacher corrected his pronunciation, he ignored it. If a friend corrected his grammar, he changed the subject. He wanted to improve, but he did not want to face his mistakes. Months passed, then years passed. Surprisingly, Ryan was still making many of the same mistakes. He was working hard, but he was not growing. One day, he met another student named Lily. Lily was very different. She also made mistakes. In fact, she made a lot of mistakes. Sometimes she used the wrong tense. Sometimes she mispronounced words. Sometimes she forgot grammar rules. But every time someone corrected her, she smiled and listened carefully. She carried a small notebook everywhere. Whenever she learned something new, she wrote it down. Whenever she made a mistake, she wrote that down too. At the end of each week, she reviewed her notes. She looked at every mistake and asked herself one question: what can I learn from this? Slowly, something amazing happened. Lily started improving much faster than Ryan. After 1 year, her English was much stronger. Her confidence was growing. Her conversations became smoother. Ryan could not understand it. He studied as much as Lily. Sometimes he studied even more. So why was Lily improving faster? The answer was simple. Ryan tried to hide his mistakes. Lily collected them. Most people think successful learners avoid mistakes. The truth is the opposite. Successful learners pay attention to their mistakes. They treat mistakes like valuable information. Imagine driving a car with a map. If you take a wrong turn, the map helps you find the correct direction. You do not throw away the map. You do not pretend the wrong turn never happened. You use the information to move forward. Learning works the same way. Every mistake is showing you where to go next. But many people let their emotions take control. They feel embarrassed. They feel frustrated. They feel disappointed. Instead of learning from the mistake, they focus only on the negative feeling. As a result, they repeat the same errors again and again. I once knew a student named David. Every time he spoke English, he confused he and she. People corrected him many times. He always laughed and said, "It doesn't matter." For years, he continued making the same mistake. One day, a teacher finally asked him, "Why don't you fix it?" David thought for a moment and realized something important. He had heard the correction many times, but he had never truly paid attention. He had never made an effort to improve. That day, he decided to change. For 1 month, he focused only on that single mistake. Whenever he spoke, he slowed down. He paid attention. He corrected himself. By the end of the month, the mistake was almost gone. The difference was not intelligence. The difference was awareness. Growth begins when we notice our mistakes and decide to learn from them. This is why many successful learners keep what some people call a mistake journal. Every error becomes a lesson. Every correction becomes an opportunity. Instead of feeling ashamed, they become curious. They understand that mistakes are not signs of weakness. They are signs of progress. Think about your own English journey. Maybe there is a mistake you make often. Maybe it is pronunciation. Maybe it is grammar. Maybe it is vocabulary. Instead of avoiding it, face it. Study it. Understand it. Learn from it. Because every mistake you understand today becomes a strength tomorrow. The people who improve the fastest are not the people who make the fewest mistakes. They are the people who learn the most from them. And now we arrive at another surprising truth. Some of the most successful people in the world made far more mistakes than you can imagine. They failed again and again before they finally succeeded. Their stories may completely change the way you think about failure forever. And that is exactly what we will discover in the next chapter. Chapter 5. In the last chapter, we learned that successful learners do not hide their mistakes. They study them. They learn from them. They use them as stepping stones toward success. But now it is time to discover something even more surprising. Many of the most successful people in the world made far more mistakes than most people ever will. The difference is that they never allowed those mistakes to stop them. Let me tell you a story. A young man named Lucas dreamed of becoming a great English speaker. He wanted to travel the world. He wanted to speak confidently with people from different countries. Every day he studied English. Every day he practiced speaking. But every day he made mistakes. Sometimes he used the wrong words. Sometimes he forgot grammar rules. Sometimes people asked him to repeat himself because they could not understand his pronunciation. After a few months, Lucas became frustrated. One evening, he sat alone in his room and said, "Maybe I am not good at languages." He thought about quitting. He thought about giving up. He believed that successful people learned quickly and easily. Then one day his teacher told him something he never forgot. She said, "The people you admire have made more mistakes than you can imagine." Lucas was surprised. He asked, "Really?" His teacher smiled and nodded. She began telling him stories. She told him about writers whose books were rejected again and again before becoming famous. She told him about athletes who lost hundreds of competitions before winning championships. She told him about inventors whose experiments failed thousands of times before creating something successful. At first, Lucas found it hard to believe. He always thought successful people were special. He thought they were born with talent. But the more stories he heard, the more he realized the truth. Success was not built on perfection. Success was built on persistence. A few days later, Lucas decided to change his mindset. Instead of counting his successes, he started counting his attempts. Every time he spoke English, he considered it a victory. Every time he made a mistake, he considered it practice. Slowly, his confidence began to grow. Not because he stopped making mistakes, but because he stopped fearing them. One afternoon, Lucas joined an English discussion group. There were many fluent speakers there. At first, he felt nervous. He thought everyone would be better than him. During the conversation, he made several mistakes. He forgot words. He mispronounced sentences. He mixed up grammar. But something unexpected happened. Nobody laughed. Nobody criticized him. In fact, many of the fluent speakers shared stories about their own mistakes. One person said, "When I started learning English, I could barely introduce myself." Another said, "I made grammar mistakes for years." Lucas listened carefully. He realized that every confident speaker in that room had once been a beginner. Every fluent person had struggled. Every successful learner had experienced failure. The only difference was that they kept moving forward. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. Nobody learns perfectly on the first day. Think about learning to swim. Nobody jumps into the water and immediately becomes an expert. Learning English is no different. Progress comes from repetition. Progress comes from practice. Progress comes from mistakes. Sometimes people look at successful individuals and only see the final result. They see the fluent speaker. They see the successful writer. They see the champion athlete. But they do not see the years of failure behind that success. They do not see the hundreds of mistakes. They do not see the moments of doubt. They do not see the times when those people wanted to quit. One evening, Lucas looked back at his old notebook. It was full of mistakes, wrong sentences, grammar errors, pronunciation notes. At first, he felt embarrassed. Then he noticed something. Many of the mistakes he had written months ago were gone. He no longer made them. Those mistakes had become lessons. Those lessons had become skills. And those skills had become confidence. For the first time, Lucas felt proud. Not because he was perfect, but because he had not given up. That is the secret many people never discover. Successful people are not people who avoid mistakes. They are people who continue despite them. They understand that failure is not the opposite of success. Often, it is part of success. Every mistake is a step. Every correction is progress. Every attempt moves you forward. So if you feel discouraged today, remember this. The people you admire were once exactly where you are now. They felt nervous. They felt frustrated. They made mistakes. But they kept going. And that brings us to the most important chapter of all. Now that you understand why mistakes happen and why they are valuable, how can you use them to become a better learner starting today? In the next chapter, you will discover practical steps that can turn every mistake into a powerful tool for success. Chapter 6. We have come a long way together. In the beginning, we talked about fear. We talked about why people are afraid of making mistakes. Then we discovered that mistakes are not enemies. They are teachers. We learned that mistakes help the brain grow. We learned that successful people do not avoid mistakes. They learn from them. And now we arrive at the most important question of all. What should you do the next time you make a mistake? Let me tell you one final story. A young woman named Chloe wanted to speak English fluently. She had been learning for 3 years. She knew many words. She understood videos and books. But she still felt nervous when speaking. Every mistake felt painful. Every correction felt like failure. One day she met an older teacher. The teacher listened to her speak for a few minutes. Then he asked a simple question. Why are you so afraid of mistakes? Chloe thought for a moment and replied, because mistakes mean I am not good enough. The teacher smiled kindly. Then he said something she never forgot. He said, mistakes do not show where you are failing. They show where you are growing. Chloe stayed quiet. Those words stayed in her mind for days. The more she thought about them, the more she realized they were true. Every mistake she had made in the past had taught her something valuable. Every correction had helped her improve. So she decided to change her approach. Instead of running away from mistakes, she started looking for them. Every day she spoke English for at least 15 minutes. Sometimes she spoke to friends. Sometimes she spoke to herself. Sometimes she recorded her voice. When she noticed a mistake, she wrote it down in a notebook. She called it her learning journal. At first, the notebook filled up quickly. There were grammar mistakes, vocabulary mistakes, pronunciation mistakes. But instead of feeling discouraged, Chloe became excited. Every mistake was showing her what to work on next. Week after week, she reviewed her notes. Slowly, the number of repeated mistakes became smaller. Her confidence started growing, not because she became perfect, but because she became comfortable with learning. One day she looked at the first pages of her notebook. She could hardly believe what she saw. Many of the mistakes that once seemed impossible to fix had disappeared. She had improved, not overnight, not through magic, but through patience and practice. That is exactly how progress works. Many people want instant results. They want to speak perfectly after a few weeks. They want confidence without effort. They want success without struggle. But real growth takes time. Imagine planting a tree. You put a small seed into the ground. The next morning, the tree is not there. After 1 week, the tree is still not there. But underground, something important is happening. The roots are growing. The foundation is becoming stronger. Learning English is the same. Every practice session matters. Every correction matters. Every mistake matters. Even when you cannot see immediate results, progress is happening. There is another lesson that Chloe learned. She stopped comparing herself to other people. Before, she always looked at fluent speakers and felt discouraged. She thought they were better than her. She thought she would never reach their level. But then she realized something important. She was comparing her beginning to someone else's middle. She was comparing her first steps to someone else's long journey. That was unfair. So she started focusing on her own progress instead. She compared herself only to the person she had been yesterday. And that changed everything. Month after month, her confidence grew. Her speaking became smoother. Her vocabulary became stronger. One evening, she joined an online conversation group. A new student entered the meeting. The student looked nervous. The student was afraid to speak. Chloe smiled because she remembered feeling exactly the same way. The student finally spoke and made several mistakes. Then the student apologized. Chloe smiled and said, "Don't worry, mistakes mean you're learning." As soon as she said those words, she realized how much she had changed. The lesson she once needed was now the lesson she was sharing with others. Maybe you are like that student today. Maybe you are afraid of making mistakes. Maybe you feel embarrassed when you say something wrong. Maybe you think you are not improving fast enough. If that is how you feel, I want you to remember something. Every fluent speaker was once a beginner. Every confident person was once nervous. Every expert once struggled. The people who succeed are not the people who never fail. They are the people who keep going. They keep learning. They keep trying. They keep improving. So from today, Stop asking, how can I avoid mistakes? Start asking, what can I learn from this mistake? That one question can change your entire journey, because mistakes are not proof that you are failing. They are proof that you are trying. They are proof that you are growing. They are proof that you are moving forward. And remember this: the only people who never make mistakes are the people who never try. But you are trying. You are learning. You are growing. And that means you are already closer to success than you think.